There is something most people never realize about success, not because it is hidden, but because it is overlooked every single day. It is not just about talent, timing, or even hard work the way most people believe it is about the energy you carry into every room, every conversation, and every decision you make without saying a single word. Some individuals seem to attract opportunities, respect, and influence almost effortlessly, while others struggle despite doing everything right. And the difference is not luck, it is not background, it is not even education. It is something far more powerful and far more personal. It is the invisible force of personality, the kind that either opens doors before you knock or keeps them closed no matter how hard you try. Right now, whether you realize it or not, the way you think about yourself is shaping how the world responds to you. The way you speak is either building trust or quietly breaking it. The way you handle emotions is either making you magnetic or making you forgettable. And the most important part most people miss is this: success does not start outside of you, it starts within you, in silence, in thought, in self-image, in control, and in purpose. In the next few minutes, you are going to understand something that can completely shift the way you move through life, how a magnetic personality is actually built, step by step, from the inside out. Not theory, not motivation that fades in a few hours, but principles that shape how people see you, feel around you, and respond to you when you walk into a room. And if you listen carefully, you may realize that what you have been searching for in the outside world was never missing. It was simply waiting to be developed within you. Self-image is the foundation of a magnetic personality because everything a person attracts in life begins with the internal picture they hold of themselves. The way you perceive your own worth, abilities, and identity silently governs your behavior, your decisions, and even your energy in social situations. When a person carries a weak or uncertain self-image, it reflects in hesitation, overthinking, fear of judgment, and a constant need for approval from others. People unconsciously pick up on this energy, and instead of being drawn in, they often feel distance or uncertainty. On the other hand, when someone develops a strong and positive self-image, they begin to carry themselves differently without even trying to impress anyone. Their posture becomes more open, their eye contact more steady, and their presence more grounded. This is not something learned overnight, but something built through repeated thoughts, beliefs, and inner reinforcement of identity. A person who consistently tells themselves that they are capable, valuable, and worthy begins to act in alignment with those beliefs. This alignment creates authenticity, and authenticity is one of the strongest forces of attraction in human interaction. People are naturally drawn to those who are not pretending, not seeking validation, and not shifting their personality based on the environment. A strong self-image also eliminates the fear of rejection because the person is not depending on external approval to define their worth. This creates a calm confidence that feels stable and trustworthy to others. In conversations, such individuals do not rush to prove themselves or dominate discussions. Instead, they express themselves with ease, listen without insecurity, and respond without fear of being judged. Over time, this creates a magnetic effect where people feel comfortable, respected, and understood in their presence. The mind plays a crucial role in building this image because whatever is repeatedly thought becomes a mental pattern, and that pattern gradually shapes identity. If a person constantly focuses on their weaknesses, failures, or comparisons with others, the self-image becomes fragmented and weak. But when attention is redirected toward growth, strengths, and progress, the internal starts to rebuild itself in a more powerful direction. This is why self-image is not just a psychological concept, but a silent force that influences relationships, opportunities, and success itself. A person with a strong inner picture of themselves does not chase validation. Instead, they naturally attract respect and attention because their energy communicates certainty. And certainty is rare, and what is rare becomes valuable in human perception. Controlled thoughts create magnetic energy because the mind is constantly broadcasting signals through behavior, tone, and presence. Another person is not speaking, and those signals are shaped directly by the quality of inner thinking. Thoughts are scattered, negative, or uncontrolled. They create internal noise that weakens confidence and disrupts clarity in communication and decision making. A controlled mind, however, is trained to observe thoughts rather than be ruled by them, which allows a person to filter what is useful and discard what is harmful. This mental discipline creates a sense of inner stability because attention is no longer constantly pulled by fear, doubt, or overthinking. Instead, the mind becomes intentional and aligned with direction. which naturally reflects in posture, speech, and emotional tone. People are deeply sensitive to this internal order because they feel it as calmness, confidence, and presence even without explanation. Controlled thoughts also reduce impulsive reactions, allowing responses to become more thoughtful and precise, which strengthens trust in social interactions over time. This creates a mental pattern where positivity, focus, and awareness dominate over distraction and confusion, shaping personality into something stable and influential. The external world begins responding to the internal world that is consistently maintained. This is why mastery of thought becomes more important than mastery of circumstances, because circumstances are temporary, but thought patterns determine long-term identity and behavior. A person who controls thinking gains control over emotional reactions, reducing stress and increasing clarity in high-pressure situations. This clarity improves communication because words become deliberate instead of reactive, making expression more powerful and influential. Controlled thoughts also shape perception of reality because attention determines experience, and what is repeatedly focused on begins to grow in importance within the mind. When focus is directed towards solutions, growth, and discipline, the mind gradually rewires itself to seek opportunity instead of limitation. This shift creates a magnetic presence because people are drawn to individuals who appear mentally organized, emotionally steady, and purpose-driven even in silence. Such individuals communicate strength because their inner world is not chaotic, but structured and aware. Over time, this internal control becomes a natural state rather than effort, and thinking no longer feels like struggle but like direction, guided awareness that continues shaping behavior, influence, and presence in every interaction, moment by moment, gradually influencing how decisions are made, how energy is expressed, and how deeply others respond to the silent authority that emerges from disciplined inner thinking patterns that continue expanding into daily awareness, shaping interactions and perceptions across different situations, where focus remains steady and attention stays aligned with the intentional mental direction that keeps developing further into deeper levels, continuing without pause. Here, speech and words hold a deep psychological power in shaping a magnetic personality because they act as the bridge between inner thought and outer influence, revealing not only what a person knows but also how they think, feel, and process life in real time. And people are naturally sensitive to this expression even when they are not consciously analyzing it. Speaks with clarity, calmness, and intention. It creates a sense of order in the listener's mind, while confused, rushed, or emotionally unstable speech creates discomfort and weakens trust, even if the content itself is logical. The human brain does not respond only to information, it responds strongly to tone, rhythm, confidence, and emotional stability behind the words, which means that how something is said often carries more weight than what is actually. A person with a magnetic personality understands that every word either builds or reduces influence, so they do not speak just to fill silence, but to add meaning, direction, or value to the moment. This awareness naturally leads to controlled speech, where unnecessary repetition, exaggeration, or emotional overload is removed, allowing communication to become clean, direct, and impactful. Such individuals often develop the habit of thinking before speaking, which creates alignment between thought and expression, and this alignment is what makes communication feel authentic and trustworthy. At the same time, silence becomes a powerful part of their speech because they are not afraid of pauses, and these pauses create space for the listener to absorb meaning, reflect, and feel the weight of what has been said, which increases influence without adding more words. Emotional control plays a major role here because uncontrolled emotions often leak through tone, speed, and choice of language, weakening even strong ideas, while controlled emotions allow the message to remain steady regardless of internal feelings. Over time, disciplined speech begins to shape perception, and people start associating that individual with confidence, stability, and leadership, not because of forced effort, but because of consistent communication patterns. Listening also becomes part of this mastery because powerful speech is not isolated talking, but intelligent response, where understanding comes first and expression follows, making conversations feel meaningful rather than mechanical. In social environments, this kind of communication naturally attracts attention because it feels rare, and rarity creates value in human perception, especially when combined with calm presence, steady tone, and thoughtful delivery that can continue shaping how influence develops through interaction and an awareness in subtle ways that keep expanding through every exchange. Emotional mastery is one of the most essential pillars of a magnetic personality because it determines how a person responds to situations rather than being controlled by them. When emotions are unstable, even intelligence and talent lose their effectiveness because reactions become louder than reasoning and presence becomes unpredictable. A person who cannot control their emotional state unconsciously gives away their power to external events, opinions, and temporary circumstances. This lack of control creates inconsistency in behavior, making it difficult for others to trust or rely on their presence. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing understanding them deeply and choosing the right response instead of reacting impulsively. When a person develops this inner discipline, they begin to observe situations rather than become trapped inside them. This shift alone transforms their personality because observation creates space between stimulus and reaction, and that space is where control is born.
A calm emotional state naturally communicates strength, even without words, because people instinctively feel safety around stability.
This is why individuals who remain composed under pressure often attract respect, trust, and attention in both personal and professional environments. Emotional mastery also reduces unnecessary conflict because a controlled response prevents escalation and turns potential chaos into understanding. We'll begin to feel more comfortable in the presence of someone who does not overreact, judge quickly, or lose balance easily. Such presence becomes magnetic because emotional stability signals maturity, and maturity is often interpreted as leadership in human interaction. Over time, this control builds inner confidence that is not dependent on external validation or temporary approval from others. The mind becomes less reactive and more centered, allowing decisions to be made from clarity instead of emotional pressure. In this state, communication improves, relationships stabilize, and personal influence expands without force or manipulation. Emotional mastery gradually reshapes identity because a person no longer identifies with every passing feeling or thought. Instead, they develop the ability to watch emotions like waves, allowing them to rise and fall without losing balance. This creates a deeper sense of freedom, where reactions no longer dictate direction and awareness becomes the guiding force. Over time, such individuals are perceived as strong, grounded, and reliable because their emotional world does not fluctuate easily. Even in moments of pressure, they maintain composure, which naturally positions them as anchors in chaotic environments. This is not learned overnight, but developed through conscious effort, reflection, and repeated self-awareness in daily experiences. As this discipline deepens, emotional reactions lose their intensity, and a quiet strength begins to define personality more clearly. At this stage, the individual no longer feels controlled by circumstances, and instead experiences a steady internal alignment that shapes every interaction and continues to expand through awareness and daily practice in subtle ways unfolding. A magnetic personality is never built on the foundation of self-centered attention-seeking behavior, but on the quiet strength of genuine interest in other people. Because human beings are naturally drawn to those who make them feel seen, heard, and understood at a deeper level than surface interaction. When someone enters a conversation with the intention to truly understand rather than to impress, the entire dynamic of communication changes, because attention shifts from self-presentation to real connection. Most people listen only to reply, but those who develop genuine interest listen to comprehend emotions, intentions, and unspoken meaning behind words. And this type of listening creates a powerful psychological effect where the other person feels valued without needing validation. This feeling of being valued becomes emotionally rewarding and naturally associates that presence with comfort and trust. A magnetic personality does not dominate a conversation, but others to express themselves freely, asking thoughtful questions that open space for deeper sharing rather than shallow exchange. This ability to focus outward and inward requires discipline, because the natural tendency of the mind is self-reference, constantly measuring how one is being perceived. But when that internal attention fully available for others, and that presence itself becomes rare and attractive, people remember how they feel in someone's presence more than the exact words spoken. And when they feel genuinely important in a conversation, a strong emotional imprint is created that draws them back toward that individual. This is why individuals who show sincere curiosity about others often find themselves surrounded by trust and openness without forcing relationships. Genuine interest also removes the need for artificial charm because authenticity replaces performance, and people are highly sensitive to authenticity even when they cannot explain it logically. When someone is not distracted by ego or constant self-promotion, they are able to notice subtle emotional cues such as hesitation, excitement, or discomfort and respond in a way that makes the other person feel understood at a deeper level, which strengthens connection naturally over time. This quality also builds emotional intelligence because it trains the mind to observe rather than assume, to listen rather than interrupt, and to understand rather than judge. And these patterns slowly reshape personality into one that feels safe and approachable. In social and professional environments, such individuals often become natural connectors because people feel comfortable opening up to them without fear of criticism or rejection. And this openness creates opportunities for influence that are based on trust rather than authority or force, gradually shaping interactions in a way that expands connection and awareness in everyday communication through subtle awareness and presence. A clear sense of purpose acts as an invisible force that shapes how a person carries themselves, how they are perceived, and how strongly they influence the environment around them, because when the mind is directed towards something meaningful, personality stops being random and becomes focused, structured, and intentional instead of scattered or reactive. Without purpose, behavior tends to shift depending on external situations, opinions, and temporary emotions, which creates inconsistency in energy and weakens the impression a person leaves on others. But when purpose is present, even simple actions carry weight because they are aligned with a deeper direction. People can sense when someone is living with intention because their words, decisions, and even silence feel organized rather than empty. And this creates a natural sense of respect and curiosity from others, who may not fully understand the reason but can feel the difference in presence. Purpose gives direction to thought, and thought shapes behavior, and behavior ultimately defines personality, which means that inner clarity gradually transforms into outer influence without the need for forced effort or artificial display. A person with purpose does not waste energy trying to impress everyone because their attention is already anchored in something larger than approval, and this reduces insecurity, comparison, and unnecessary emotional distraction, allowing confidence to develop in a stable and grounded way rather than a temporary or reactive form. This stability creates gravity in personality, where people feel drawn not because of loudness or performance, but because of the quiet certainty that the individual knows where they are going, and certainty is rare enough that it becomes naturally attractive in human perception. Purpose also organizes time and focus, which strengthens discipline, and discipline reinforces identity, creating a cycle where actions become more aligned with long-term vision rather than short-term comfort, and this alignment produces consistency that others begin to trust. In conversations, a person with purpose often speaks with direction rather than random. And even when they are not speaking about their goals directly, their presence communicates seriousness and intention that influences the tone of an interaction around them. Over time, this creates a reputation that is not built on words, but on patterns of behavior that reflect commitment and clarity, and people begin to associate their presence with progress, reliability, and depth. Purpose also reduces internal confusion, and a less conflicted mind naturally radiates calmness because there is no constant struggle between direction and distraction, allowing emotional energy to remain steady even in uncertain situations, which strengthens resilience and presence in environments that would normally create instability and distraction. And internal awareness continues shaping behavior quietly without needing external validation or recognition. In the end, a magnetic personality is not something that is worn like a mask or performed in front of others. It is something that is built silently within the mind through self-awareness, discipline, and consistent inner alignment. A person sees themselves, strengthens through the control of thoughts and emotions, and becomes powerful through the way they speak, listen, and connect with others. It is refined through emotional mastery, where reactions are no longer stronger than awareness, and it reaches its highest expression when a person stops seeking attention and starts giving genuine attention to others. Above all, it becomes complete when life is guided by a clear sense of purpose that brings direction, stability, and meaning to every action. When these principles come together, personality stops being and becomes naturally influential, not because of effort to impress, but because of the presence that is built from within. Success in life is not about chasing approval or copying others. It is about developing an inner state so strong and clear that everything outside begins to respond to it. When a person works on their inner world with patience and honesty, their outer world slowly begins to reflect that transformation. Every small improvement in thought, behavior, and discipline contributes to building a presence that attracts respect, opportunity, and meaningful connections without force.
Good luck on your journey of becoming that stronger, more focused, and more magnetic version of yourself. Growth takes time. But every step you take in the right direction is shaping a future that aligns with your highest potential. Thank you for the attention and for investing your time in this message.